All right, ready for another deep dive into the Faroes news.
Always. It's fascinating to see what's making headlines out there.
We're going to keep things moving since you guys know the Faroe Islands pretty well, but still give you those insights. And of course, joining us as always, we've got our expert ready to decode all of those headlines.
I love trying to read between the lines and figure out what's really going on.
Yeah, it's a puzzle sometimes, isn't it? All right, so what really popped out to me from the sources is all this buzz around the municipal elections.
Mm.
Some really close races. One in Oyndarfjörður even ended up with a police report.
Wow, that's intense. Things can get quite heated in local politics.
Yeah, it makes you wonder, right? Like these local elections, they might seem small, but what's their real impact?
Oh, they're crucial. I mean, these are the councils and mayors who decide everything from uh, infrastructure and school funding to like tourism strategies.
Right, so their decisions really shape the community's day-to-day life.
Absolutely. And these recent elections, well, they might be hinting at some interesting changes for the next 4 years.
Yeah, definitely a lot of new faces and new dynamics. Like we've got Bjarni Pryor continuing as mayor in Vagar, but then you've got Sarah Jugvansdottir taking over in Vestmanna, and then all these coalitions forming. It's a whole political dance.
Exactly. It'll be fascinating to see how these new leaders and the partnerships they create, well, how they'll guide their communities.
Will they go all in on sustainable tourism, focus on infrastructure development?
Or maybe prioritize social programs. Yeah, the next 4 years could bring some real changes to the islands.
Now let's switch gears a bit and talk economics. This headline about MBM caught my eye. Big player in the fishing industry. They need a new CEO.
MBM. Okay, yeah.
Hakun Steingrimsson stepping down. But here's the thing. He's going to stick around as an advisor.
Hmm. That's interesting. I mean, the fishing industry is vital to the Faroes economy, so any change at the top at MBM, well, it's going to have ripple effects.
Could this be a sign of maybe a new direction for the company?
Possibly. It could be a response to, shifting markets or maybe the increasing focus on sustainable fishing.
And having the old CEO there to advise, I guess that ensures some continuity.
Yeah, it makes sense. They don't want to lose that experience completely.
On the topic of economic challenges, we've got Nordic Aqua, the aquaculture company. They're having some trouble reaching their goals this quarter. The sources are blaming biological challenges. What does that even mean?
Well, aquaculture, it's a growing industry in the Faroes, but it's not without its difficulties. These biological challenges could be anything from uh, fish health issues, water quality, any environmental factor that impacts production.
So it's a reminder that economic growth, it often comes with some complications.
Definitely, especially when you're dealing with living organisms and the environment.
All right, let's lighten things up a bit now, move away from the economics. There's a really nice story about Carmel Mission House in Ayari. They're celebrating their 90th anniversary.
Oh, that's wonderful.
These institutions, they really seem to have a special place in Faroe society.
They do. Places like Carmel Mission House, they're a tangible link to the past, a connection to those traditions and values that really make up Faroe's identity.
They're kind of like community centers helping to preserve that culture.
Exactly, even as the world around them changes so rapidly.
And speaking of culture, the Faroes music scene is still going strong. We've got Simona Paula. She's got a new album out, up and coming in the folk pop scene, quite talented. And then there's a lot of talk about Beinir. He's got an album release event coming up at Tuttle, the legendary Faroes record label.
Tuttle, they've been so instrumental in promoting and preserving Faroes music for decades. To have them involved in Beinir's release, it really says something about his potential.
Shows how much they believe in him.
Absolutely.
It's great to see both traditional and contemporary music, thriving side by side.
It's a sign of a healthy music scene.
Okay, so this one's a bit random, but I came across this international news story that I thought was interesting. An S flight heading to Miami from Arlanda hit some really bad turbulence. Had to turn back to Copenhagen.
Oh, wow. That's scary.
Yeah, and it got me thinking about the Faroes, you know, being so geographically isolated.
Right. They rely so heavily on air travel for everything, really.
Yeah.
Tourism, business, even just everyday transportation.
When something like that happens, it really highlights how vulnerable those connections can be.
Definitely. It's a reminder of the realities of island life.
All right, so we've touched on Some pretty diverse topics today: political shakeups, the economy, some culture, even a bit of international news. It's been a whirlwind tour of what's happening in the Faroe Islands right now.
And what's really striking is how interconnected these stories are. They all reflect this intricate tapestry of life on these islands.
Yeah, you pull on one thread, and the whole thing starts to unravel.
Yeah.
Now let's really dig into some of these stories, starting with that heated election in Oyndafjörður.
Oh yeah, let's get into the details of that one. I think that election in Oyndafjörður, it really shows how much people care about their local communities. It's not just, some abstract political game. It's about shaping the future of the place they call home.
Yeah, it's personal.
Exactly. So when the stakes are that high, well, it's no wonder emotions can run a little hot.
Makes sense. Speaking of political landscapes changing, our sources are talking about this new coalition in Tórshavn. Tjóðveldi, Javnar Flokkurin, and Borgarellistin, they've joined forces.
Oh, wow.
And Elsa Berg from Tjóðveldi, she's the new mayor.
Yeah.
Youngest the capital's ever seen.
That's significant. I mean, Tórshavn is the heart of the Faroes. This new coalition, their policies, they could have a big impact on the whole country.
Especially with her focus on things like sustainable urban development, social welfare, that kind of thing.
It'll be interesting to see how she handles it all, being so young.
Yeah, a lot of responsibility on her shoulders. From a tiny village to the capital, seems like Faroe's politics are never dull, right?
Definitely not.
And the changes, they're not just happening in individual towns either. There's talk about possibly merging some municipalities on Sandoy.
Ah, yeah, the consolidation idea. That's been floating around for a while.
What are the arguments there?
Well, some people say it would make things more efficient, streamline services, lower administrative costs.
Makes sense.
But then others worry about losing that local control. They're afraid the smaller communities, their needs might get overlooked.
It's a tough balance, isn't it?
Yeah, efficiency versus preserving that local identity.
We'll have to see how it plays out. All right, back to economics for a minute. Another story that caught my eye, the director of Gulkaverki Buna Armana, the dairy company, he was dismissed.
Oh, really? The sources didn't give much detail on that one.
No, it's been unclear what exactly happened.
Hard to speculate without more information, but it does show you, even industries that seem stable, like agriculture, things can change quickly.
Yeah, leadership changes happen for all sorts of reasons.
Yeah.
Internal disagreements, shifting markets, who knows?
It's a reminder that there's always more to the story than just the headline.
Definitely. Okay, enough economics. Let's talk about Simona Paula. Her new album, remember we mentioned it earlier.
Oh yeah, the folk pop artist.
What's she all about?
She's great. She blends folk, pop, even some electronic elements into her music.
Interesting mix.
And her lyrics, they often draw inspiration from Faroe's nature, folklore, everyday life.
Gives it a real local flavor.
Exactly. She's part of this new generation of Faroe's artists, pushing boundaries but still staying connected to their roots.
They like that. And then there's Bynir, his album launch at Tuttle, that legendary record label.
Tuttle, they're institutions in the Faroes music scene. They've been around for decades, supporting both established and up-and-coming artists.
And they're known for preserving traditional music while also giving space to new sounds.
Exactly. So their involvement with Bynir, it's a big deal.
Shows they believe in his talent.
It speaks volumes about the future of Faroes music, too.
Before we move on, I want to go back to that SAS flight for a second. That turbulence, it really got me thinking about the challenges of living on islands, especially somewhere as remote as the Faroes,
Yeah, they've always had to deal with that geographical isolation.
relying on those air and sea connections for everything.
An incident like that really highlights how fragile those connections can be.
It makes you appreciate the resilience of the Faroes people,
Yeah.
adapting to these challenges for centuries.
They've always found ways to thrive.
And speaking of resilience, our next story, it's about a pretty remarkable achievement. This is a big one. Friet Val, they advocate for reproductive rights in the Faroes. They just won the Pidge Prison 2024 in Denmark.
Wow, that's huge.
It's a prestigious award,
Mm.
recognizes their work, not just in the Faroes, but, on a broader scale.
It's a powerful statement, acknowledging the importance of their advocacy as part of this bigger conversation about, Reproductive rights, social justice.
Yeah, those issues, they go way beyond borders.
Absolutely. And it's also significant that a Faroese organization is getting this kind of recognition internationally.
It shows that that these conversations are happening in the Faroes too.
And that they're making an impact beyond the islands.
Okay, so uh, shifting gears a bit. There was a fire in Torshav over the weekend. Authorities think it might be arson.
Oh, really? Where?
The building, it's known as Pishusiye.
Pishusi, I know that place.
Luckily, no one was hurt.
That's good.
But it does make you think about safety in the city.
Arson, it's pretty rare in the Faroes.
Yeah, it is.
It's a reminder that even in a place known for peace and quiet, things can happen.
It's a bit unsettling, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, we've covered a lot today. Elections, the economy, culture, even a bit of international
That
news.
real mix.
It's fascinating to see all these different aspects of life in the Faroe Islands, how they connect.
It's like a snapshot of what's happening right now.
What I find really interesting is this sense of change. The Faroes, they were at this crossroads,
Trying to find their place in a changing world.
but also wanting to preserve their unique culture.
It's a delicate balance to strike.
Makes you wonder how things will unfold, doesn't it?
It does. And that brings us to a question for our listeners to think about. As the Faroe Islands keep evolving, how will they manage that balance? How will they embrace progress while also protecting their heritage?
It's a tough one. Something to ponder. Anyway, thanks for joining us for another deep dive into the Faroes news. We'll catch you next time.